Hello everyone. This video is a follow-up to my last video where I talked about the ways of coping with anxiety and stress during the coronavirus. And today I want to talk a little bit more about that. I attended a training the other day on how to own your own feelings and help the uncomfortable feelings pass during this pandemic. And so I just wanted to share some of that with you. Um, there's lots of different feelings people are having right now. There's a lot of change and uncertainty. We don't have control over a lot of things. The days seem kind of monotonous, where every day seems the same. Sometimes it's hard to tell what day of the week it is. Um, we get overwhelmed, feel anxious, depressed, confused, bored. Um, Loneliness is a big problem, especially for people who live by themselves, of course, but also if you're, used to being able to get out with your friends and you're finding that you're stuck in the house all the time. And then you have weeks like this week where it rains every day and you can't even go outside and walk around. I know a lot of the students go out and play basketball, so not being able to do that with all this rain, it can be very hard. And, we have feelings we may not be used to, like just feeling unproductive. Um, we feel like we have all this extra time on our hands where we can't do things we normally do. So we ought to be able to get things done around the house or get projects done, um, maybe start something new, a new hobby or whatever, and then you find days going by where you're just not doing that. So you feel like you're wasting your time. But, all that's normal because we're going through a very difficult time. Um, People are having trouble focusing, trouble sleeping, feeling guilty about different things, feeling angry, just snapping at people, overreacting to simple things. I think most of us are experiencing these same types of feelings. So, how is COVID-19 causing these? Well, because we're all facing fear and uncertainty. None of us know what's going to happen. There's a lot of questions floating around about what school will look like in the fall. Different counties are talking about doing it different ways, where we may have students coming in the morning and different students coming in the afternoon, or students coming to school on A days or B days, and all these different ideas that are floating around, but nothing has really been decided yet. So there's a lot of uncertainty about what that's going to look like. Um, so basically, what we're all going through right now is trauma, and trauma is defined as a deeply distressing or disturbing experience, an emotional shock following a stressful event or physical injury. So when you go through trauma, your instinct to fight, flight, or freeze kicks in. And so in this situation, if you're fighting, you might be just not literally fighting, but trying to hoard supplies and do different things you can do to help keep your family safe. Flight, you might just be pretending it's not real, um, not really wanting to believe that these things are happening. And I've had days like that where I feel like I've been in the house for so long and not watched the news, so maybe this isn't really happening. It's like it's a dream or something. Um, and freeze, the freeze response would be you just don't do anything at all. You're just kind of stuck. I've had moments like that too, where I'm just kind of stuck and not really doing anything, whether it's work-wise or just something I might enjoy. I'm not really doing anything. I'm just kind of sitting there, just feeling like I can't move forward, almost like time is just standing still. So all of these feelings are valid. We may not have it as bad as someone else. Someone else may have had a family member that's been sick with the virus or been in the hospital, or their parent might have lost their job. There's all different kinds of experiences that people are having right now. So we may not have it as bad as other people, but our feelings are still valid, and it's important to recognize those. Um, let's see. But one thing you can do is kind of figure out what you're feeling, try to identify that feeling, and figure out what you can do to give yourself a little more control in the situation. Because not having control of anything has really raised our anxiety. For instance, if you're worried about going to the store because you don't want to get sick or you don't want to get the virus and bring it back to your family, you can do things to try to minimize that risk by wearing a mask, going to the store, first thing in the morning as soon as they open when there's not as many people there. So how can we take back control? Well, we've got to acknowledge that we don't have control over everything, right? We can't control if the governor says that there's a stay-at-home order. I mean, we can still go out, but we'd be violating the order. At some point, we could, I guess, get into trouble for that, depending on what the law is. But, we can't control whether or not we get the virus ultimately, but we can do things to minimize our risk. And then we can do things to try to stay connected to people, even though we can't get out and do the things that we would normally do. So, there's a certain sense usually in society for people just to, push ahead, just keep moving, whatever it is, just, deal with it and keep on going. Well, it is important to take time to allow yourself to feel the things you're feeling and to move through it, push through it as you're learning to cope with things. Can't get past it at the moment or get over it, but you can recognize your feelings and then cope in a more productive way. So feelings versus emotions. Well, feelings, like you may say, I feel sad. And that's more of a conscious experience, a surface level feeling. Emotions are more subconscious. They're under the surface. So it's important to look at awareness and then acceptance and action. So awareness, you want to be mindful of the emotion. You've got to stop long enough to really think about what it is you're feeling. Try to center yourself. You can use mindfulness or meditation. Identify what you're telling yourself, and then you can scan your body for like tension. You might have tension in your shoulders and your neck, or that may kind of signify what emotion you are actually feeling. You might get a headache from being stressed, or if you're angry or upset about something. Some people get headaches. So there's some options you can do to try to help yourself be aware of the emotion. You could record yourself, I guess, during any scenario and kind of watch it and then see what your emotion was. Or you could write down your thoughts. And it doesn't have to be like a journal. You could just write down little bulleted points on what you're feeling, where the tension is in your body. Accepting your feeling doesn't mean that life is automatically going to get better. It just means that you have a way of living life on the terms that are presented to you, so that you can help it improve, help you feel more in control. Next would be the action. So once you recognize your feeling, you got to figure out what to do with it. Maybe you can talk it out with someone else. Just figuring out different ways to bring your anxiety down. So some ways of handling big emotions is you've got to accept the feelings but not dwell on them. You've got to make sure you're getting the basics, like a good night's sleep, but not too much sleep. Eating nutritious foods, moving your body. That physical movement, not only you get the increase in endorphins, which makes you feel better, but you're releasing that physical energy. Staying connected. So it's hard not being able to see people face to face or to hug people. And so we have to find other ways to stay connected, whether that's FaceTime calls, regular telephone calls, Zoom meetings, maybe visiting from a distance. I visit my parents every week, but we sit outside on their deck and we sit, 6 to 10 feet apart. And it bothers me not to be able to hug them, but they're elderly, so I have to be careful, and I'm just thankful that I can still see them on a regular basis. Helping feelings pass. So there's different things you can do to help yourself relax. You can do breathing exercises, which we've talked about that before, or you can just breathe in real slow and deep breaths, hold it a few seconds, and then exhale real slow. Taking a shower or a bath can help you feel better. Sometimes water just has a cleansing factor to it. I mean, not just literally getting the dirt off, but just a cleansing feeling of relaxing you and making you feel renewed and refreshed. Making a gratitude list, things that you're thankful for, which helps you focus on the positive things that you have going on in your life. Writing things down, journaling, or you can just talk out loud. Like if you don't like to write, you could just talk out loud about what you're feeling as if you're talking to another person. You can go outside and connect with nature. I've heard of some families that don't normally have a garden. They've got a garden going right now, or they've done some planting of flowers and just different things to get outside, taking walks, going for a hike, bike ride, or like I said, playing basketball. A lot of you like to do that. Anything you can do just to be outside. Or one of my daughters has just been going outside and taking one of those folding chairs and sitting under a tree and reading a book because she enjoys reading, and so it just at least gives her a different setting. She's getting outside and getting fresh air. You could also take a nap. Sometimes that can help you reset. I know sometimes I don't have a reason to feel tired, but I do feel really tired. So if I just close my eyes and I set an alarm for 15 to 30 minutes, and just that few minutes of just completely relaxing and just dozing off for a short time can make me feel refreshed and ready to go again. Coloring can be a good way to relax, doing puzzles, reading, talking to friends. Obviously, exercising, like I said, any kind of exercise you do is going to help you feel better, elevate your mood. If you are angry and you go for a power walk or a run, that can help release that anger, just that pounding of your feet on the pavement. You can plan for what ifs, as far as your fears or anxieties are concerned. Figure out the distance between your worry and what the actual reality is. So I could be completely panicked about getting the virus, but in reality, there's probably only a percentage that I will get it. So I can do things to try to keep myself healthy in general, so that if I am exposed to it, my body can fight it off better. And like we said, you can do things like wearing a mask or going to stores in certain times of the day to help prevent the amount of people that you are coming in contact with. Let's see. So it's basically just making a plan up to deal with any special circumstances that might come up. I'm hoping we're all back at school in the fall, but I've tried to start, planning in my head, if we're not back in school, if we're having to do school the way we're doing it now, how can we improve that and make it better as far as school itself running better and everybody, getting the education that they need or the counseling that they need, but also just my own self, how can I set a better routine with it and become more efficient and feeling like I'm getting stuff done and then still having time left over in the day to enjoy my own interest. So you got to think sometimes of what the worst case scenario is, because sometimes we tend to think of something in the worst, like we just think something is awful, but when we really start thinking, okay, if I do have to do this thing, like say I was worried about, I'll give you an example. I don't like doing these videos because I don't like seeing what I look like, but I can say worst case scenario, what's going to happen? Somebody's going to watch it and they're going to laugh at what I'm saying or what I look like or whatever. But ultimately, I think, does it really matter? No, it doesn't. So I'm just doing the videos because that's my job and that's what I need to do. But that's just an example of things that in our mind we might blow out of proportion and try to avoid something because we're worried of what other people are going to think, or that we're not going to do well with it. We won't do a good job. But in reality, things are probably not as bad as what we're thinking. So one of the things I wanted to show you real quickly is a little worksheet. This has tips for success, and this is talking about allowing yourself to feel the feelings that you have and not going with statements you've probably heard before, like, big girls don't cry, or man up. Anybody has a right to cry. I mean, we all have emotions, regardless of whether we're a man or a woman or a child, or um, regardless of our race or religion or any of that. We all have feelings and sometimes need to cry or need to express those feelings. So it's important not to ignore how you're feeling, because the feelings will just build until you end up blowing up. So as we've said, it's important to talk it out. Building your emotional vocabulary. A lot of times we just tend to say, oh, I'm fine, I'm good, or um, I'm mad, I'm sad, whatever. We don't use a lot of other descriptive words. And on the next page, it shows you much more descriptive words of things we could use to describe in more detail how we're feeling. All right, so I'm going to kind of skip down through here. Obviously, one of the things you can do is to talk to a professional if you're struggling with your emotions and need help kind of sorting through things. But this kind of shows like how to look at what's underneath the emotions. You might think of a specific action. This could be something you did or something somebody else did, or an event, and then fill in the blank to identify what's underneath. So I felt bad when blank happened, but what I was really feeling was blank, blank, and blank. So you might automatically think of something that made you feel mad, but what you were really feeling was like you weren't good enough, or you could never do anything right, feeling defeated, more words that would describe. Here's the list of positive and negative feelings that give more detail as to what you might be feeling. So there's all different situations there they give you that you can fill in the blanks about being sad, mad, good, happy, just the typical words that we use, and then trying to replace it with these more detailed words underneath. So just thought that was an interesting looking list. I will attach this to the link for the video so that you could see it in more detail if you want. So basically just remembering that we need to take care of ourselves, not just push the emotions down, because that's not healthy, but we need to try to do some stuff to treat ourselves, do something fun, do something that gives us exercise, that releases those endorphins, that's going to make us feel better, make sure we're getting enough rest, and seeking support from other people. Let's see. So just take time to remember the things that you have to be grateful for your family, friends, more time to play your video games, whatever it is that you're thankful for. And it's just important to take this time to be creative, just explore some new hobbies, whatever you can think of that's going to help you feel more productive or more positive about this time that we're all still restricted so much in what we can do. So I hope that this helped a little bit. This is May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So just want to try to do some things to help us think more about the emotions that we're dealing with during this time, and how we can better cope with them. So if you have any questions, just shoot me an email and I will get back with you. And hope everybody is doing well. Thanks.